Good morning and welcome. I'm Sandy. Before you move too far into your day, I invite you to spend a few minutes with me here. We don't always get to choose what the day brings us, but we can bring awareness to how we meet it with curiosity instead of assumption, with courage instead of avoidance, and with presence instead of distraction. So today I want to talk about the power of gentle courage and strength. Notice where force is not necessary today. Some situations are transformed not through domination, but through patience. So take a breath slowly in and arrive exactly as you are. And let's look at today's intention. Again, breathe in deeply and fully, and then gently let it go. Relax and take another deep breath in fully. And as you exhale, allow yourself to settle fully into this moment and be present. Relax your shoulders, let go of any tension from your jaw and your neck, and allow your hands to rest. For today, consider the question, where in my life might I be using force when what is truly needed is patience, steadiness, or quiet courage? We often think of strength as the ability to push harder or to hold our ground, to overcome resistance, or somehow take control of the outcome. And certainly there are times when that kind of action is necessary, but yoga offers us another opportunity to practice strength and a new understanding of strength. Through the principle of nonviolence, ahimsa is often translated as simply nonviolence, but its meaning goes much deeper. It asks us to notice the quality of the energy that we bring to ourselves than to other people and the situations that we experience. Are we meeting life with unnecessary force? Are we pushing against something because action is truly needed or because uncertainty makes us uncomfortable? Are we using our strength wisely or are we simply trying to overpower what we can't control? So, ahimsa, also known as nonviolence in yoga philosophy, doesn't ask us to become passive. It doesn't mean avoiding difficult situations or conversations or abandoning our boundaries. Sometimes the compassionate response is just no. And sometimes courage requires us to speak clearly and make a difficult decision or stand our ground. So the question isn't just whether we act, but what quality of energy we bring to that action. Now, take another slow, deep breath in and exhale, let it go. There's a big difference between a boundary created from clarity and a boundary created from anger. There's a difference between speaking from truth and then using truth as a weapon. There's also a difference between taking decisive action and trying to dominate an outcome because we're afraid what will happen if we loosen our grip on it. This principle applies just as much to the way we treat ourselves. In fact, that might even be more importantly because the way we treat ourselves is, in fact, the way we treat others. We can become incredibly forceful with ourselves, our emotions, and our progress. We tell ourselves that we should be further along than we are, or we should be stronger or more disciplined than we are, or we should have been more productive, that we should somehow be different from who we actually are in this moment. We sometimes talk to ourselves inwardly in ways that we would never talk to somebody that we love, and we call that motivation. But yoga asks us to consider whether transformation requires this kind of force, truly. Could we still move forward without being that harsh on ourselves? Could we acknowledge where we are without abandoning where we truly want to go? Could patience, steadiness, and compassion actually be a better expression of strength rather than forcefulness? Again, take a deep breath in slowly. And as you exhale, imagine yourself becoming deeply rooted, not rigid, not immovable, but rooted, like a tree that can remain grounded while its branches move in the strong wind. There's a strength in that kind of flexibility. The tree doesn't fight every gust of wind or try to defeat the storm. It bends when bending is needed, and it stays rooted where rootedness is needed. There's a wisdom in asking ourselves, where do I need to stand firm today, and where could I soften? Where could I bend? This is where ahimsa, nonviolence, becomes more than just a philosophy that we understand, it becomes something that we practice. We begin to notice where force is necessary and where force is just a habit. We learn that gentleness doesn't mean weakness. Patience doesn't mean being passive, and compassion doesn't require us to surrender our boundaries. Think of the courage it takes to remain kind when you've been hurt, or to listen when you would rather defend yourself or admit when you're wrong. There's a strength in telling the truth without using it as a weapon. There's a strength in saying no without anger and in walking away without needing to have the last word. So these are not acts of weakness. They are actually expressions of strength that no longer needs to dominate and prove its power. Now consider your relationship with yourself. Notice how often you try to motivate yourself through criticism or harshness. Notice when you tell yourself that you should be getting more done, that you should have accomplished more than you have, or you should know better in a circumstance. We can be incredibly unforgiving to ourselves. What if compassion could create a different kind of strength? What would it mean to acknowledge where you are without abandoning where you want to go? You might remind yourself that even though this is difficult, I can still take one step today. If I'm afraid, I can still be courageous. If I'm tired, I can still honor that without completely giving up on myself. If I made a mistake, I can learn from it without becoming that mistake. Strength doesn't require the absence of fear because courage exists because fear exists. Strength doesn't require certainty, but instead it asks whether we can remain present even in that uncertainty and continue to move forward. Strength doesn't mean that nothing affects us. Sometimes the strongest thing we can do is allow ourselves to feel deeply without allowing those emotions to dictate our actions. We can feel anger without becoming cruel. We can experience fear without allowing that fear to make our choices for us. We can feel sadness without deciding that joy will never come again. And we can experience frustration without surrendering our peace. This is the strength of inner steadiness. Take another slow, deep breath in and slowly let it go. Now bring to mind one situation you may encounter today that could require strength. Hold it in your awareness and don't imagine the worst. Simply notice what's there and ask yourself, what would gentle courage look like here? Notice whether this situation calls for calm or clear speech, for listening or establishing a boundary, or establishing patience and waiting. You don't have to control everything in order to meet it with strength. You don't need to overpower every obstacle or win every argument or force every door open. Sometimes things respond better to patience. Some situations are transformed when we stop asking, how can I control this, even if it's subconsciously? Instead, begin asking, how can I meet this with courage, wisdom, and steadiness? That is the practice of ahimsa, nonviolence, not withdrawing from life, not becoming passive or refusing to act, but learning to act without unnecessary harm or force, learning to use our strength consciously, and that sometimes the most powerful response is no response. Take another slow, deep breath in and gently let it go. And as you prepare to move into your day, carry this intention with you. Today, I will remember that strength does not always require force. I can be gentle without being weak. I can be patient without being passive. I can feel fear and still choose courage. And I can meet what comes with a quiet steadiness that does not need to prove itself. Before you leave this moment, ask yourself one final question. Where can I replace force with a gentle courage today? And let the answer be simple. Notice where you can change the way you speak to someone else, or perhaps the way you speak to yourself. Recognize where patience is needed and where listening is needed, where you can soften and bend, or where you must stand firm. Where one small step forward towards something that frightens you is the most courageous thing you can do today. You don't have to roar to be strong. Sometimes the greatest strength is found in the quiet decision to remain present, courageous, and compassionate, when it would actually be easier to react, retreat, or harden yourself. As you move into your day, take one more deep breath in and slowly let it go. Remember, you may not get to choose everything this day brings your way, but you can choose how you meet it. Carry today's intention with you, not as something else that you have to accomplish, but simply as something to return to whenever you need it. Thank you for spending this time with me today. May you move through your day with awareness, with intention, and an open heart. Until tomorrow, be well and meet your day with purpose. Namaste.